Hi everybody, welcome to the Unit 1.1 review video. Let's go ahead and get started. The first couple of questions, or the first page, is dealing with combining like terms. So when we are combining like terms, looking at problem number 1, we're looking for terms with the same variable. So my first term has a variable of r, and it's positive 2r, and then I look for the other r terms, and there's negative 5r. And then 3s stands by itself. It's only s terms. So I'm going to combine my two circles, and I get negative 3r. And then I bring down the positive 3s because it's all alone. Okay, so that's number 1. Moving on to this other target practice number 1. I'm going to circle all of my k terms. So I have positive 3k and positive 6k. And then I'm going to box my x terms, negative 2x. Notice I boxed the negative in with it. And then I can put triangles around this constant of positive 5. So I'm going to combine my like terms. 3x plus 6k gives me 9k. And then bring down negative 2x since it's the only one, and my positive 5 since that is the only constant that I have. Okay, on number 2, I'm going to circle my a terms. So I have 4a, positive 4a, negative 5a. And when I combine those, I get negative 1a. But remember, we don't have to write 1 in front of our variables ever. So we can just write that as negative a. Then I'm going to box in my y terms. So I have negative 2y and positive 4y. And when I combine those, I get positive 2y. And then I can put triangles around my constants. And 3 minus 7 is negative 4. Okay, moving on to target practice number 2. I am going to circle all of my x terms. And when I do that, I end up with negative 2x. Then I'm going to box in my a terms. Well, there's only one, and it's positive 2a, so I go ahead and bring that down. And then I put triangles around my constants. So I have 3 plus 2.5, which gives me 5.5. All right, let's move on to number 3. It says the length of a rectangle is negative 2x minus 3, and the width is 3x plus 5. Write and simplify an expression representing the perimeter of the rectangle. So let's go ahead and draw a picture of a rectangle. Then I'm going to put 2x minus 3 as my length and 3x plus 5 as my width. Now, to find the perimeter means adding up all the sides. So I can go ahead and combine all my x's. So I'm going to highlight positive 2x, positive 2x, positive 3x, and positive 3x. And when I combine all my x terms, that gives me positive 10x. Now I'm going to combine all my constants of negative 3, positive 5, and positive 5. And when I do that, when you add all those blue numbers together, you should get plus 4, a positive 4. So this is my answer for a simplified expression representing the perimeter of the rectangle. Okay, moving on to number 3 from the target practice. Once again, I'm going to just add up all my sides. So I'm going to combine my like terms. I'm going to highlight all my x's. 3x, 3x, 2x, and 2x. Okay? So now I can highlight all my constant terms in a different color. Oh, that's not working. Okay, so now I'm going to combine all my x terms. So I'm going to combine my 3x, 2x, 3x, and 2x, and that should give me 10x when you add those all together. And then when I combine all of my blue constants, I have 4 plus 1 plus 4 plus 1, which should end up giving me 10. So my simplified expression for the perimeter equals 10x plus 10. Okay, moving on to number 4. It says the width of a rectangle is 3 less than twice the length. Write and simplify an expression representing the perimeter of the rectangle. So I'm going to draw my rectangle. I label the length, and it tells me that the width of the rectangle is 3 less than twice the length. So the way I represent twice the length is 2 times L, and then 3 less means I'm going to subtract 3. So I label both my widths as 2 times the length minus 3, which again is the same thing as saying 3 less than twice the width. So now I can go ahead and combine like terms. So I'm going to highlight all my L terms. And when I do that, I end up getting L plus 2L plus L plus 2L gives me 6L. And then I'm going to highlight all of my constants, -3 and -3. And when I do that, I get -6. So the simplified expression for that rectangle, perimeter of that rectangle, is 6L minus 6. Okay, number 4 on the target practice. It tells me that the length of the rectangle is 4 more than twice the width. So, let's see where I'm at. Sorry, technical difficulties. So now I'm going to label my width, and it tells me the length is 4 more, so you add 4 to twice the width. So 2W is how we represent twice the width. Now I'm going to go highlight my W terms. And when I add those together, I should get 6W. And then I'm going to highlight my constants. And when I add those together, I should get +8. So there is the simplified expression for the perimeter of that rectangle. Okay, moving on to the next page where we are simplifying by distribution. On number 5, they're telling us under the actual review, we're going to get rid of these parentheses by distributing this 2. So it's 2 times 3x and then 2 times -6. So 2 times 3x gives me 6x, and then 2 times -6 is -12. And make sure that you're remembering those signs in front of each term. Notice I didn't multiply 2 times +6. I included that negative sign in front of the 6 there. Okay, same thing on this target practice number 5. 3 times 2, and then 3 times -x. So 3 times 2 is 6, and then 3 times -x is -3x. All right, on number 6 under the simplifying by distribution, we're going to multiply -4 times x, and that gives me -4x. Notice I'm bringing that negative sign in front of the 4 with it. Now I'm going to multiply -4 times -2, and that gives me +8, because the negative times the negative gives me a positive. Now -4 times 3 is -12. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have distributed the -4 to the 3 because it's not inside the parentheses. So I just bring that +3 down. So now I'm going to combine like terms, my +8 and my +3, and I should get -4x plus 11. Okay, now on number 6 under the target practice, we have a negative sign out in front of the parentheses. Well, that's the same thing as -1. Remember, we normally don't write a 1 in front of things. So I'm going to distribute negative 1 times 9, and that gives me negative 9. Negative 1 times 3x becomes negative 3x. And then I bring down that 12 and the positive x because they were outside the parentheses. Now I combine my like terms. I'm going to combine this positive x and negative 3x, and that should give me negative 2x, and then 12 minus 9 is positive 3. And there's the answer to number 6 under the target practice. Now, for number 7, we're going to distribute this negative 3 times x and this negative 3 times negative 7. I go ahead and bring down this 5. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21. And then I bring down the positive 8 and the negative 2x. Now I'm going to combine like terms, so I combine my negative 3x and my negative 2x. That gives me negative 5x, and then 5 plus 21 plus 8 is positive 34. All right, number 7, distribute this negative 6 times 2x and this negative 6 times the 4. We have to take care of the parentheses first. So I end up getting negative 12x and then negative 24. I'm going to go ahead and bring down this 2 that was in the front and the 20 that was in the back since they were both outside the parentheses. Now I combine my like terms. Well, there's only one x term, so bring down the negative 12x. And then my constants, 2 minus 24 plus 20 brings you back to negative 2. So now I'm going to move on to the word problems for distribution. They're asking us to write a simplified expression for the perimeter of the rectangle. Well, remember, perimeter means adding up all sides. So I'm going to add 3x plus 4x plus 8 plus 3 times x minus 2. Well, I always tell y'all to distribute first. So I'm going to multiply 3 times x and then 3 times negative 2. So I end up getting 3x minus 6 when I distribute. Now I'm going to bring down the 3x plus 4x plus 8. And then I'm going to combine like terms. And I should get 3x plus 3x plus 4x. And when I add those all together, I should end up with 10x. Now I'm going to add together my constants. 8 minus 6 becomes positive 2. And that is the solution to number 8 on that review sheet. So now on number 8 under the target practice, it's asking us to write the perimeter of the formula for a rectangle. Well, perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Remember, we derived that formula in class. Now it says using the formula to simplify the expression for a rectangle with length x plus 6 and width 3x minus 2. So I have a rectangle. I draw a rectangle, and the length is x plus 6, and the width is 3x minus 2. Now I'm going to combine like terms, so I can use this length and width and plug it into this perimeter formula up at the top. So the perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Now we're just going to replace the letters L and W with the length and the width of this specific rectangle. So it's 2 times x plus 6 plus 2 times the width of 3x minus 2. Well, now we can distribute the 2 inside the parentheses, and you end up with 2x plus 12. Then distribute this 2 inside this parentheses, and you end up with 6x minus 4. Now when you combine like terms, you combine the 2x and the positive 6x, and you end up with 8x, and then the positive 12 and the negative 4 combine to equal positive 8. So my perimeter equals 8x plus 8. Okay, moving on to 1- and 2-step equations. They're asking us to solve in number 9 for the variable r. So we are subtracting 12 from r, so the opposite of subtracting is adding. So we're going to add 12 to both sides. And when we do that, we're going to bring down the variable r, bring down our equal sign. The negative 12 and positive 12 cancel out, which is what we wanted. And then negative 80 plus 12 becomes negative 68. And there is my answer. R equals negative 68. Now on the second number 9 under the target practice, we have negative 7 times y equals negative 84. Well, we are multiplying negative 7 times y, and the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we are going to divide both sides by negative 7. These cancel out, so you end up with y equals negative 84 divided by negative 7 becomes positive 12. And remember, it's positive because a negative divided by negative equals a positive. Now, here on number 10, we have to get x by itself. And the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this 6. So we subtract 6 from both sides since we were adding 6. That cancels. We bring down our negative 3x. 12 minus 6 is 6. Then we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. So that negative 3 cancels out and the variable's left by itself. X equals, and then 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. I'll write it off to the side. I wrote it off in the other problem. So X equals negative 2. Okay, on number 10 under the target practice, we're going to add 8 to both sides because we want y by itself. So that goes away. 2 plus 8 is 10. Bring down the 5y. So 10 equals 5y. Now we're multiplying 5 times y, so the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So y equals 10 divided by 5, which is 2. So y equals positive 2. All right, moving on to number 11. It says the total bill for repairing John's TV was $131.50. The repair shop charges $25 an hour for labor plus $19 for parts. How many hours of labor did it take to repair John's TV? Okay, well, we're going to define the variable. We'll use H for hours, and H equals the number of hours to repair the TV. Okay, they want us to write an equation. So the total that he spent was $131.50. Okay, but the repair shop charges a $25 an hour, so 25 times H, plus the $19 for parts. So we're going to add 19 for the parts. So now all we have to do is solve this equation. So 131.50 equals 25H plus 19. So we're going to subtract 19 first. Remember, our whole goal is to get H by itself. That cancels out. We bring down the equal sign and the 25H. 131.5 minus 19 gives me 112.5. Divide both sides by 25. And you end up with H equals, when you divide that out, 4.5. So now they want us to answer the incomplete sentence. So this H equals 4.5 means it took 4.5 hours to repair John's TV. Okay, the next problem tells us that James has been making payments on his new car stereo system. He currently owes $75 and is paying $15 each month. Write and solve an equation that can be used to find how many payments will be made before the stereo is completely paid for. Well, let's define the variable. P, I'm going to let equal the number of payments. Okay, and then when we write an equation, it says he owes $75, and if he's paying $15 each month, So that's each month he's going to make a payment. So 15 times P is how I'm going to set that up. Okay, so now we solve that equation by 75 equals 15P. I divide both sides by 15. So P equals 75 divided by 15, which is 5. So P equals 5. So this tells me James will pay off his stereo in 5 monthly payments. Okay, next problem is saying that the cost of Joel's new computer is $774.75. This is 75 less than 5 times the cost of his new Xbox. Write and solve an equation that can be used to determine the cost of his Xbox X. Well, they tell us to define the variable. Well, the variable equals the cost of his Xbox. They tell us that in the problem. Now they want us to write an equation. Well, the cost of his computer was $774.75. And that's equal to 75 less, so that means I'm going to be subtracting 75 5 times his Xbox. So 5 times X, the cost of his Xbox, minus 75. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and solve that equation. And the first thing we're going to do to solve is add 75 to both sides. The negative 75 and the positive 75 cancel out. I bring down the 5x. $774.75 plus 75 should give you $849.75. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And X ends up equaling $169.95. So this tells me that the cost of Joel's Xbox is $169.95. All right. Last problem on 1 and 2 step equations. It says an evergreen in Sam's yard is now 78 inches tall. If it grows 6 inches each year, how many years will it take to grow to a height of 105 inches? Well, what they're wanting us to find is how many years. So I'm going to label my variable as y, and that's going to equal the number of years. Okay, the equation, we want it to be a height of 105 inches. So we want the height to equal 105. And we know that it's growing 6 inches each year. So 6 times y. And then we know it's already 78 inches, so we're going to add 78. Okay, so we have 78 plus 6y, or 6y plus 78 equals 105. And now we need to solve. So I'm going to subtract 78 from both sides. I end up with 6y equals, I'll rewrite it the proper way. 105 minus 78 is 27, and then I bring down my 6y. I divide by 6, so y equals 4.5 years. Okay, now they want us to answer in complete sentences, what that means. So that tells me it will take the evergreen, or 4.5 years, to grow a height of 105 inches. All right, now that takes care of our 1 and 2 step problems. Let's move on to the last page of multi-step equations. So they're asking us to solve. And remember, in problem 13, we have parentheses, so we have to distribute first. So it's 2 times a and then 2 times negative 1. So I end up with 2a minus 2 equals 12. Then I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Bring down the 2a. 12 plus 2 is 14. I'm then going to divide both sides by 2, and I end up with a equaling 7. All right, now on number 13 on the target practice side, I'm going to multiply negative 3 times n and negative 3 times negative 4. So I end up with negative 3n plus 12 equals 15. Now I subtract 12 from both sides, bring down the negative 3n, and 15 minus 12 equals 3. I then have to divide both sides by negative 3, and n equals negative 1. Okay, on number 14, once again, we always distribute first. So I'm going to bring down this 3 because it's not dealing with the parentheses. Then I need to distribute this 5 times c and 5 times positive 3. So I get 3 plus 5c plus 5 times 3 is 15 equals 18. Now I combine my like terms. The 3 and the positive 15 become positive 18 plus 5c equals 18. Now I subtract 18 from both sides. Bring down the 5c, and 18 minus 18 is 0. Divide both sides by 5, and c equals 0 divided by 5 is 0. Okay, number 14 on the target practice side. I bring down my negative 4d. I distribute the 2. So 2 times 3 is 6, and then 2 times d is 2d, and that equals negative 14. Okay, now I combine my like terms. Negative 4d and positive 2d, and that gives me negative 2d plus 6 equals negative 14. Okay, now I'm going to minus 6 on both sides. Bring down the negative 2d. Negative 14 minus 6 leaves me with negative 20. Divide by negative 2, and d is going to equal positive 10. Now let's go back to number 14 on the review side. If you're multiplying 5 times 3 and 5 times, or sorry, when I distribute this 5, notice I distributed first. Some of y'all will make the mistake, this is a fair warning, of adding this 3 plus 5 first to get 8 times c plus 3 equals 18. Do not do that. Remember, we have to distribute first. It's the golden rule. Okay? Now, moving on to the last 2 word problems I'll review. We're almost done. It's saying that in 2012, Houston Astros hitters Justin Maxwell and Jason Castro combined to hit 24 home runs. How many home runs did each hit if Maxwell hit 12 more home runs than Castro? Part A asks us to define a variable for Castro's home runs. Well, so I'm going to define it as C equals the number of Castro's. Oh, I'm going to put the number sign. Okay, on part B, they now want us to write an expression for Maxwell's home runs in terms of Castro's home runs. Well, that means in terms, well, this term we use for Castro's home run is C. So an expression for Maxwell in terms of C is C plus 12, because it says Maxwell hit 12 more home runs than Castro. So that's Castro's home runs plus 12. Now they want us to write an equation to determine the number of Castro's home runs. Well, we can add, what else we know in the problem is they tell us about the 24. When we add the 2 players together, we know that they have the home runs, they have to equal 24. So Castro plus Maxwell equals 24. Well, we represent Castro as C, and then Maxwell as C plus 12. So now we add those together. combining like terms, you get 2c, and then we bring the 12, and that equals 24. Then I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides, and I bring down my 2c. And 24 minus 12 is 12. Then we have to divide by 2, and c equals 6. So if Castro's home runs was 6 and Maxwell is 12 more than that, Maxwell hit 18. And we can double check by making sure that those two numbers add up to 24, and they do. So that's the answer to number 15. Now let's go on to number 15 on the target practice side. It tells me that angle A is 3 times the size of angle B. The sum of the angle measures is 128. Find the measure of each angle. Well, we're going to write an expression for angle A in terms of angle B. Well, angle B is x plus 2. Angle A is 3 times the size of angle B. So we're going to do 3 times angle B, which is x plus 2. Now they want us to write an equation and solve for x. Well, angle A plus angle B equals 128, they tell us in the problem. Well, we know that angle A we're representing as 3 times x plus 2 and angle B as x plus 2. So now we have our equation written. Let's go ahead and solve. So I have to distribute the 3. 3 times x is 3x, and then 3 times 2 is 6. So now I bring down the x plus 2 and the 128. I combine like terms. So I end up combining my positive x and my 3x to get 4x. And then 6 plus 2 is 8. Now I have to subtract 8 from both sides. I'm going to have to go into the next part, sorry. So I bring down my 4x. 128 minus 8 is 120. Then divide both sides by 4, and x equals 30. So now that we know the value of x, they tell us to find the measure of each angle. So the measure of each angle, well, I can plug back into the formulas that we came up with right here. So I'm going to take 3 times x plus 2, but this time I'm going to replace x with 30. And then I distribute, or I can combine, inside the parentheses. So it's 3, this is angle A, 3 times 32, which is 66. So angle A is 66 degrees, and angle B is x plus 2, which is 30 plus 2, which is 32 degrees. Now I should check my answers and make sure that they add up to 128, and they don't, because, and I can go back and realize I multiplied wrong here. 3 times 32 is not 66, it's 96. So there are my answers right there. Okay, I hope this review was helpful. Please remember to study your vocabulary and go back any of the worksheets that we gave to you in class, and I will be in my room at 6:45 on Monday morning for any last-minute questions from 6:45 to 7:15. Okay, I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see y'all on Monday.